What is up, guys? It's your boy. We have returned, and oh my god, what a race to return to for the second week of this series of trying to get to the promised land of A+. If you didn't watch the first episode, links down in the description. It'll be a card up top as well. Think of that video as the mission statement for the rest of this series. And yeah, what a race to come to. Spa dynamic weather. Honestly, when I saw it, I was like, first I was excited. Then I was like, oh, So before we get into the feature race of this episode, I want to give you guys a little bit of an update of where my driver rating is at currently. So you can see here, this is the current driver rating I got on GT7. Before these week's daily races, I did do a few races at Autopolis last week, which might have adjusted my rating slowly, but obviously as we go into the series, I'll make sure to keep this updated so you guys know exactly where we're at. And make sure to stay tuned to the end to find out where we're at the end of this episode. So in this episode, our journey actually started in the 911. I wouldn't say it's the meta. The 650S is definitely the meta, but it's probably one of the stronger cars that I could have picked. We were in it for one race, really struggled. Basically, we got punted by this guy. He then proceeded to not wait up for me, didn't really give me any grace, so that wasn't exactly ideal. Give grace, otherwise you will be exposed to the internet for the rest of time. But essentially, my race was ruined after that punt, which subsequently made me go and actually choose the 650, as it seemed to have a little bit more oomph down the straights. Things started pretty well actually in that race. I think we started at about P3 until my own misfortunes messed this one up. Mate, what's going on? I've bottled it. I went off once. I then pitted too early. And yes, we basically finished second last in both of those races, which, as you can imagine, didn't exactly do much good to my driver rating. So going into the feature race, it was all about making sure we could get the most ELO points to get that driver rating up. And this was an absolute corker. So here we go into the feature race of this episode. As you can see, I qualified pretty well. Top 4 with a 2:18. Obviously previewing the rain before it came in, and there was a big band of heavy rain. So that's going to play a factor in this race as we go to light out. So we're about to head up Eau Rouge. Now you can see P4 pretty good. Honestly, I was just hoping to kind of avoid any contact here and making sure I just made it through these first few laps, as they're always a tricky one at Spa. This 911 is right on my bumper. It's a long race, so I didn't really want to do anything too risky. As long as I just avoided collisions and didn't make any mistakes on my part with spinning out and things, it was going to be okay. Tried to send it here on the BRZ in front. I backed out because it just looked like a collision waiting to happen. All the cars super bunched up here. I actually didn't realize in the moment how I even got tapped there by the 911. Obviously, it was Nico bumping Richard into me. I don't know, just a little bit of lap 1 shenanigans there on my part. I don't think there was any malice in that. You can quite easily mess up your braking point. I will give him a fair bit of grace because I'm definitely guilty of doing that myself as well. As I alluded to earlier, this is a race that is not won on lap 1. That's kind of what I like with this daily race. See, it's based off your performance, across the whole 20 laps. It's a long 40-50 minute race. So you can see here I ran wide, but I didn't put up any fight or anything. I kind of just held my spot. I was also a little bit nervous because I've literally just spanned the last 2 races and I didn't want to, spin out and completely ruin my race. I was also anticipating having a lot of wet weather running in this race as well, so I did think, places could be gained a little bit later in the race. I didn't put up too much of a fight. As we're approaching turn 1, you can see again, one mistake leads into another. What a rookie error. I'm honestly lucky I didn't get no damage. Just a little light tap on the wall. And I think I just used this moment to reset, get some clean sectors in, and we move in to lap 3. We can see Nico ahead of us has a penalty, as well as the dude in front of him. Richie also has a penalty. Good for me, bad for them. Don't know what happened there, looking like a bit of a ding-dong battle. Ended up spinning out the 911. That could be his race over. And just like that, look, a P3 is right in sight. And this is what I mean. I didn't want to go too early. I knew there was places to be gained. Obviously, the guy in front of us is going to have a penalty. At this point in the race, I was lasered in. I think that's another thing. Going to the wheel. This is week 2 or 3 of me being on a wheel. I have to use every ounce of my being to make sure I don't make mistakes. I'm really driving on the limit. I know I'm not the fastest driver, but yeah, right now I'm driving on the absolute limit. So any small mistake, I'm going to really get punished. And to be honest, the grid in front of me and behind me is still really tightly grouped, as we can see here going around Nico. We've got 4 cars in the space of what, like, it's no more than a second there, really. We're in P3 right now, boys. Come on, come on, come on, come on. No! Oh my god! Wow, that was... I felt like that was I felt like I was in VR. What an insane moment. This guy almost clarted me off the track. That would have been my race over. I can see he tried to do avoiding action. It's quite interesting because I'm watching these replays back. I can actually see what happens. In the race, I had absolutely no clue because I was absolutely dialed in. And we're just holding P3 here. The 911 and that BRZ behind me are pretty fast, to be honest. And as you can see, it's taking absolutely everything for me to keep this on the road right now. A super intense start to this race. Like, I think this might be one of the most, like, intense openings to sport mode race I've ever had. Oh! Mate, what's wrong with me? Oh, he's gone for the send. I tried to give him the space. He can go for it if he wants, but you're not going to make it work. Obviously, in context, I'd been streaming for like 5 hours at this point. A pretty impressive save there. As we can see, the rain is coming. I think this is probably a good time to kind of take stock on where we actually are on the race. There's about 2 or 3 cars behind us, all quite tightly packed. I actually didn't see this again when I was racing, but the French guy in the BRZ went off here. I think he had a penalty or something. Sorry, the Italian guy. And you can see Mocus and Payne Lynch, they are kind of way ahead. Well, that's until Mocus gets the chicane all types of wrong, and just like that, P2 there in sight. This is what I was talking about. This race is not won in lap 1, turn 1. It's a race that is won over the course of the 45 minutes. As you can see, I'm setting purple sectors. Even I was quite surprised that I even managed to get purple sectors down. As we can see by the dampness meter, the rain is falling. How on earth have I managed to get a purple sector on mediums in the rain? I'm thinking quite deeply now about, do we pit, do we not pit? Again, I think I've learned my lesson from some of the previous races in the stream that day where we had pitted a lap early and it basically ruined our whole race. Again, don't put too much of a fight here with the French moob in the 911. It's not worth it. If we spend time battling, we're both going to just lose time in the long run. So I let him go. Don't put up too much of a fight. But don't get it twisted. P2 is still very much in sight. I'd like to think I'm just playing the long game. Just trying to keep it on track. Obviously, the rain is coming down. And if we can see the weather radar here, it's about to get really heavy. I think that's like a green torrential section at the bottom of the map there. So I definitely panicked a little bit here. I had 2 mistakes in a row, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to follow Mocus into the pit. He was obviously P2, so he seems like he was relatively fast. And then we had the decision on whether we go on to inters or wets. Now, earlier in the stream, I went on to inters, and basically the weather turned into full wet weather. So I thought this time, let's go on to wets, and you can kind of see what I thought about that pit stop here. He's on inters in front of us. Oh, okay. I think we should have stayed out for another lap. Cameron. Relax. It's wet now. Let's put that traction control on. And this is where the boys are separated from the men. All the girls and the women, you know, I don't discriminate. As we managed to pick up a pace there with Richie, I'm just going to assume that he hadn't already pitted already. And as you can see, the rain is getting worse. What I noticed on Spa is that the rain kind of lingers around for quite a little bit, as we have a little bit of a mistake here up Eau Rouge. Yeah, again, starting to set in a little bit. We did get track limits, but to be honest, because we were in the rain, it didn't really matter too much. Skipping ahead here, we can see Moob. He has returned, and he has clearly not pitted. And he's now paying the price. So all of that battling earlier on for basically nout. He basically ruined his race by not pitting there. So now we're at lap 10, and as you can see, the wets are finally starting to pay off. The damp meter is getting much more damp now. It's not damp anymore. It's very, very wet. And Mokus, you know, obviously he was like 5 seconds up the road or something. He is going to get past. Bit of a ding-dong battle here. Kind of clip his rear. I should know better, to be honest. I probably should have backed out. Nothing major, though. Didn't ruin his race. But look at that. P2 is literally within sight. And to be honest, by my surprise, he actually pitted here. I thought he was going to carry on going. Bit of a strange decision. I didn't think he was going to come off his inters onto wets. But there we go. P2 has been secured. And at this point in the race, as we go on to lap 15, it was all about not messing up and just keeping it on the track. I was driving pretty much within myself. Definitely not within my limits. But I definitely felt like I was getting faster. Turns out the wets were also a good idea. We did obviously get stuck up in a little bit of traffic at some points, you know, before or after the pit stop. People were kind of battling with us, lost a lot of time on the leader. And to be honest, I was taking some time out of his delta, but he was just so clear out in front. A really good race from him. Funnily enough, he pitted 1 lap later. So, you know, there's the answer maybe to how we lost so much time on the leader. But it definitely wasn't over yet, as I did make a little bit of a late race oopsie. How much fuel we got left? We don't want to die on fuel. We got 1.5 laps. Okay, let's freaking bring that back. Let's bring that back. Let's bring that back. Let's bring that back. I've got to be careful on the fuel. I've got to be careful on the fuel. Anyway, is that enough? So some major fuel saving had to happen over the course of this final lap. Honestly, like, if this race went on for 1 lap more, I think I would have probably got shafted. But thankfully, you know, the delta did go down from 3rd, but I had such a big lead, basically a whole pit stop's lead on the guy in 3rd. We managed to bring it home. You can see at the end here, 5 hours of sim racing. It takes it out of my arms, but it doesn't even matter because we do get across the line in a P2. Let's have it. I was pretty happy with this one, I'm not gonna lie. After having pretty poor performances over the course of the last 2 races, to come home with a P2 in this race, it was absolutely gas. But the real question is, what does this do to my driver rating at the end of this episode? And as you can see, we're basically where we started. I think I've learned a few things about how I'm going to attack this series. I'm not going to be anywhere near as risky with my moves. Keep it nice and safe. But to say we finished second last in 2 races, we basically brought back our deficit in that final race. I think that's a positive recovery. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. Keep an eye out for a stream coming up probably Monday or Tuesday, where we're going to go ahead and give the next week's daily race a go, as well as some of the new content in Gran Turismo 7. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.